Hello, friends. I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks fucking horrible, even to me.
Hey man, stay safe. World here. You already know what's going on, man. We kicking off this Black History Month on a whole lot of weird activity, man. Joe Rogan is essentially right now getting canceled for this montage that India Ari posted of him saying the N-word with the hard R over 12 years, hundreds of times. But before we get into all that, man, I'm gonna need y'all to like, comment, subscribe, and let's run it up, man. So basically, this all stems from, I don't know if y'all saw earlier this week, basically Neil Young, who's like a big singer, has a huge platform and stuff. He basically said that he was gonna pull all his music off of Spotify unless they did some type of censorship to Joe Rogan's podcast. Basically, he was saying that Joe Rogan's podcast was spreading misinformation about vaccines and stuff like that, and that had him feeling like some type of way enough to pull all his music off. And I guess to Joe Rogan's defense, I guess he wasn't really, I mean, yeah, he was basically saying that he wasn't vaccinated and stuff like that, and sort of like definitely spreading ideals and like becoming like the type of like talking points that like people that are anti-vax would say, and also having like experimental medicine people like on his platform basically saying like talking about the virus and stuff like that, and was always like a virus skeptic and stuff like that. So it wasn't a good look, but I guess it's like to each his own. So people just kind of like felt that it was his own opinion and stuff like that. But then I guess India Ari sort of like continued that conversation, because she basically said that she was going to pull her music off the platform unless they, I guess, totally censored him or got rid of him. And she said it for a totally different reason. Basically, her reasoning was that this man had said the N-word so many times in conversation, not just like the N-word with the ER or with the A, but like the N-word with the ER over so many times of conversation that like is kind of ridiculous. And I mean, I've watched the podcast a couple times like that. I'm not gonna say I'm the biggest fan of it. I feel like it took like a weird turn when it started going on some alt-right rabbit hole type shit during the pandemic. But before that, when it had like actual good people that were talking and stuff on the podcast, I felt like it sometimes had good dialogues. But then I definitely feel like the fucking pandemic made it a lot weirder, so I was like already kind of skeptical of it. So then she basically drops like a 12-minute video where it has a compilation of every time this man said the N-word, and it was like, bruh, this man said it more than I do, and I'm black, man. He said it more than a lot of people, bro. And it's like with the ER, and it's like, yeah, I guess out of context, it is weird. He dropped a video basically saying that a lot of it was out of context, and they were talking about like the use of the word and stuff like that. But instead of saying the actual N-word, he was saying the word, which I guess he was saying nowadays is he realizes it's totally wrong, and it looks really bad, like having that amount of like N-word usage in like once or twice, you know, maybe like 3 times if you're saying like a constructive dialogue. Because it's like if you say it like once or twice or something like that, like I feel like it's sort of like, it's not good, but at least you can break it down to people and say the reason why. Like people will be able to research it and clearly be like, oh, he wasn't talking like on some crazy shit. He was like just out of context on like those 3 times, and they were like something involving like this situation, and it wasn't that crazy. Like people could easily look it up. But when you say it so many times over 12 years, it's like even if it's out of context or in context, who the hell's gonna look up the fucking context of him saying the N-word for hundreds of times, bro? Like I'm not even shitting you. They have a whole like montage of him saying it like hundreds of hundreds of times. I can't even post it on YouTube because it's like the way that the fucking demonetization and shit like that works, like it's just gonna probably get like some type of strike on my video for hate speech or something if I played it. But just know that the video's there. Like you could check on India Ari's Instagram. She basically has it in her like highlights, and she basically explains why she feels this type of way, and it's basically putting Spotify in the hot seat. Honestly, I don't really think that Spotify, I mean, they obviously shouldn't have like white supremacist content and shit on there, but I don't really feel like Spotify is the person that needs to be censoring anyone. They're like, for instance, like this platform, the Joe Rogan platform, could easily be on like YouTube or something like that. It's kind of like the same thing. I don't think YouTube has like I don't believe that YouTube and platforms that are similar to that, where it's just like content being uploaded on there, has to really like censor people on that type of level. Like they can add like a warning sign on it because it's not really their views. That's like the same thing with music, because if you censor this, then you're gonna have to censor rap music and shit like that. You're gonna have to censor like all types of stuff, you know. Like I feel like it's kind of like a slippery slope with the shit. So I honestly don't think that Spotify should be in the business of censoring people, because it's like if you censor one person, you have to censor other people, and then it's like a whole thing that you have to be consistent throughout, and it's kind of hard to be consistent, especially when it's a platform with like billions of people like using that shit. So that's just my view on it. But I'd feel like the Joe Rogan shit, like he's definitely in the wrong. There's no way that you can really spin this, because it's like even if you're talking about the N-word like that, you should just be saying like the N-word. Like maybe, just maybe you could say like nigga or something like that. Like if it were really like the context of what they were saying and stuff. I guess he was saying that he was talking about like Richard Pryor and people like putting it as like the title of his shit, but really it's like a word that only really the black community should be saying. And I will never he didn't. And the thing that I feel like was good about his apology was that he didn't go and say like what people like random white people be saying, like people are always so mad, they find something to be mad about everything, man. Because it's like that's like the absolute worst thing that you could say in that type of situation, is like blaming it on the people who are mad. Because it's like obviously people are gonna be mad, but I mean there's always these unbothered people, and it's always like white people that are like don't understand this shit. But at least he understands it and has the insight like that he can realize what he did was wrong, you know. I mean, obviously he shouldn't have been saying that shit in the first place, but it's like I mean, I guess you're taking a step in the right direction and admitting your faults, you know, because it's like all you could do really is like admit your faults in this type of situation, because if you push back, it's just gonna make it look worse. This is coming on top of like everything. Like I don't know if the Joe Rogan podcast is over. It doesn't really seem like Spotify even cares enough. Well, they do care because they released a statement, but it doesn't seem like they're like the type of people that are gonna like ultimately like remove the podcast or anything like that. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I mean, I would be surprised because there's a lot of backlash. They were saying basically in the Neil Young situation that they were kind of standing behind it. Like they added a warning label and stuff like that. However, I don't think that he ever used like the hard R N-word in like any type of context when he was signed to the Spotify deal. This is all like old footage. I mean, like maybe the most recent one, it could have been like a couple years ago, but he's only had this like Spotify deal for a little bit, and it's already been a giant controversy. But it's like at the same time, it's like I don't really know like what they're expecting like to do for past type of stuff. But I mean, we'll figure it out, man. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna be like canceled or whatever. I mean, it's like because he could always just take his platform to like YouTube. He could always just take his platform for YouTube and stuff. But it's gonna be interesting, like what Spotify does, especially when they own the rights to it or whatever for such a long period of time. I feel like that's kind of like the reason why they're trying to work it out, because they own it. It's probably in the contract, unless they cancel that type of shit, that they own it. So it's like they have to figure out what to do with it. But man, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if he is definitely in the wrong, or maybe it was a giant misunderstanding or something like that. You know, I don't know if this is the rise and fall. It could possibly be, because it's a lot of controversies adding up. That's usually what ends somebody. Like, one controversy, okay, you could like look past it, but when it's like multiple controversies and one includes saying the N-word and shit, it's kind of hard to get past that type of shit, man. But hey, let me know in the comments what y'all think. Real stay safe.